If you live in the Warhammer world and the skies start looking like cotton candy, you should run as fast as your little feet can carry you, because arcane horrors are on the prowl, and mercy is not in their vocabulary. But in this realm outside time and space, immortal dragons clash with the followers of Tzeentch. Cathay vs Tzeentch in this one. Let me just say before we get started, I'm accepting replays of all kinds at the moment, but if you're playing Tzeentch and using Pendulum, I probably will not cast it. It is a really stupid spell that makes for really boring matches in its current form. Thankfully, not going to be dealing with it in this one, and what do you know? Ended up being a very entertaining replay. Zhao Ming the Iron Dragon, fresh out of Hanyu Port after storing some Warpstone, finds himself in a magical land of swords and sorcery. His two spells here are Dragon's Breath and Constellation of the Dragon, which can have a somewhat rough time against Tzeentch because of their overshields and innate spell resistance, but he's magic resistant himself, and he's leading a wide army of Jade Warriors, Peasants, Jade Lancers, and the mighty Terracotta Sentinel, with Longbow Riders flying overhead. As is so often the case in this series against ranged heavy factions with powerful magic, your infantry is better off cheap and numerous, while you invest more money into the single entities and mobility game to turn the tide. As for Cathay itself, they are certainly a stronger faction in land battles than they are in domination, where they can more readily support their crossbows and take advantage of their harmony mechanics, something they can't do so well in Dom. But as for a tier list in land battles, I really have no idea. I just know that Tzeentch is still really strong in both game modes, but like I said, they're not abusing some of the more unsavory abilities in this match. Horrors are pink, horrors are blue, where once there was one horror, now there are two. And then we have the Forsaken of Tzeentch, which some consider to be one of the best infantry units in the game currently from a cost efficiency standpoint. Anyway, large part due to their Protoss shield and their 40% spell resist, which is wild. If their shields are up, they're essentially immune to magic damage, which is a super rare trait for infantry of any kind to have. Then we have a Cultist of Tzeentch in the center, a Fire Sorcerer with the Gate of Tzeentch, Burning Head, and Fireball, and hidden all the way in the back of the map, got some Chaos Knights and a Herald on a Burning Chariot with no spells whatsoever, which is a bit weird. He'll be casting, well actually he'll be leaving all the casting to the Cultist, and instead using his support abilities to generate magic for the hero while he snipes with his range attack and cycle charges into melee. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting play. Normally, I'd say if you want to do that, just bring a Tzeentch Herald on a disc or on a Burning Chariot, give him blue fire magic missiles to spam, and you're essentially accomplishing the same thing. But looks like he really wants to focus on the fire magic to wave clear, and will be investing all his spells into that, while the Chaos Knights prowl down below. Exceptionally difficult to kill with their high melee defense, 120 armor, and barrier passive. So those are the builds. Let's get into the action and get ready to rock the dragon, Zhao Ming, the Iron Beast, ascending into the upper atmosphere and ready to poop on some Tzeentch boys. Let's get it poppin'. Yeah, I mean, that's quite the spectacle, isn't it? It's really something special from a cinematic perspective anyway. Game's got bugs for sure, but it has style. No question about it. Okay, Jade Warriors and Peasant Spearmen getting into melee. Nice Burning Head, but it seems to have been nerfed since Warhammer 2. Armor seems to block a lot of its damage. Jade Warriors have 80 armor, and they were able to weather the storm quite easily there. Didn't take a whole lot of damage at all. The lower armor of the Peasant Spearmen, well, they got destroyed by that wind spell. Forsaken hiding out on the right flank, ready to spring their ambush, and they're better suited than most infantry in the game for that kind of role. They're quite quick, quite mobile. Peasant Horsemen getting in and getting rid of the overshield for the blue horrors with the Jade Lancers following it up, and not a bad strat there. Will allow their 48 charge bonus to kick in much more effectively when you don't have to deal with that Protoss shield. And now the Iron Dragon descending into the back ranks to tie up the pink horrors and prevent them from supporting, which of course is a big part of what makes Tzeentch so dangerous, right? Their ability to survive that initial shock damage, then turn their focus fire to units that are drowning in a tide of horrors. Getting through all of that is quite difficult. Short-range fire breaths and the Iron Hard Lances of Cathay's cavalry attempting to break the demons on their left flank, while the Terracotta Sentinel and the Peasant Swarm move up in the center. Tzeentch has 4 Forsaken in this battle, so the infantry fight should probably go their way, but dealing with that Sentinel and Zhao Ming will not be easy for them because they're somewhat lacking in the armor-piercing department. Opening stages are going well for Cathay. The terrain is advantageous for them, with about half the Tzeentch army currently in the tree line, and many of the units out in the open having already been tied up by that combination of Peasant Horsemen, Jade Lancers, and Iron Dragon, which is really how you want to deal with those overshields. Hit them with something cheap, swarm them, get all over them, and then once their shields are down, then hit them with some of the heavy hitters. But the Sentinels, Cav, and Flyers cannot fight effectively in the woods either, and Tzeentch is still waiting to reveal their ambushes. Longma are coming in from the rear, Forsaken are screaming in from the flanks, and Burning Head, for the second time, trying to catch out the Jade Warriors on their advance, but only just grazing them. Really not a whole lot of damage there at all. Out on this side, Chaos Knights have revealed their presence, and Jade Lancers want none of that action, trying desperately to escape. But even though both units are 66 speed, Chaos Knights are in charge range, which means they are faster, and the Cataphracts have been completely caught out here. Nicely played from the boys in blue. Cathay has no hope in that fight, even with a clean charge. They'll need help if they want to survive the next couple of minutes. Sentinel is moving into the tree line, but does not have Strider, so will not be too effective fighting infantry in there. Another Psycho Charge into the Forsaken, which are proving quite tanky, but a good engagement, dealing with them on the Tzeentch left flank. And in the rear, the Peasants will not last long against a combination of Horrors and Forsaken. Cataphracts are pretty much already dead. They are not able to pierce through the Tzeentch overshields, and it's just not a heavy cav fight that they have any chance of winning. Really, the only way to turn that now is a rear charge from Long Riders or from the Iron Dragon, but he is currently indisposed at the moment because he is winding up for a Constellation of the Dragon onto a huge Forsaken blob, and this is an amazing wave clear spell. It can be somewhat easy to dodge, but if it lands, it almost always eviscerates the unit that it hits. The problem is that while the Cataphracts are being run over by Forsaken and Chaos Knights, is that, well, Forsaken have 40% spell resistance, and they have half their overshield still up. So let's see how much damage that does. Almost nothing. Yeah. So that would literally have pretty much one-shot Bloodletters or most other infantry in the game. Mid-tier infantry would have no problems dying there in droves. They didn't give a shit. Tzeentch does not care. Overshield and spell resistance, that's a potent combination, and they just shrugged it off like it didn't even happen. Which is true for both sides, really. Jade Lancers and the Jade Warriors haven't really cared about these Burning Heads at all. A few Peasants have been incinerated, but other than that, the Burning Heads have been somewhat anemic, and it'll be interesting to see if they get better as the battle progresses and the HP bars start to drop. So, out on the Cathayan right flank, we have Jade Warriors and Jade Lancers pushing through and inundating those pink horrors who look like they're about to crumble out. The Dragon Breath doing essentially nothing through the 40% spell resist of those Forsaken, and there are still plenty of those infantry that are now dealing with the Jade Warriors in melee, and they should be able to win, especially if they can get a Psycho Charge. That is the second tier army ability for Tzeentch. Just killed a good 20 models or so in the middle of those crossbows. Peasant Horsemen and the rest of those routing Peasants rallying to their lord. Longbow Riders coming in for the rear charge on the Chaos Knights, and a Chaos Portal, a Gate of Chaos, canceled in favor of a Burning Head, and that will probably deal some good damage. Yeah, the crossbows and the Peasants felt that. Meanwhile, Mortal Kombat moves coming in from Liu Kang. Roundhouse kick to the noggin just took out a Chaos Knight. Longbow Riders plunging into the flank while the overshield for the Chaos Knights is down. And Zhao Ming, as soon as that dragon ability comes off cooldown, he needs to be popping that and start causing some terror, because those Chaos Knights are just tying down a huge section of the Cathayan army right now and forcing the blob where the Burning Heads can start making a large impact. Going after the crossbows now. Good charge coming in from the Chaos Knights of Tzeentch. And Zhao Ming has a lot of work to do here because Tzeentch is looking pretty strong. Even with the hammer and anvils coming in from the Jade Lancers, Cathay is running out of steam on that flank, and I don't think the Jade Warriors have enough in their tank to win that fight mano-a-mano. Longbow Riders are in great shape, though. They've done a ton of damage, and the Terracotta Sentinel has kind of just been mulching infantry in the woods, doing whatever it can. Zhao Ming unleashing his true dragon form for the second time this battle, and killing the Chaos Knights is top priority. Their barrier shield is down. They are not immune to psychology, which means they can be terror routed, and that is why Zhao Ming, alongside the Longbow Riders, will focus them, because they are by far the biggest threat to the remaining crossbows and to many of these lightly armored Cathayan troops. So they will hound them to the edges of the map if that is necessary. Finally, the Gate of Chaos came out from the cultist of Tzeentch. That means pink horrors have entered the field, and while Zhao Ming is tied down by them for now, he still wants to turn his attention to the mounted warriors, the elite of Tzeentch. Chaos Furies are still surrounding the Terracotta Sentinel in the woods. Not a bad idea to just try to stuff it up. That's exactly what the Changer of Ways wants from his army. Essentially, throw meat shield after meat shield at the Terracotta Sentinel, prevent it from coming over here to where the important engagements are with the Chaos Knights and the Burning Chariot and the Herald, and you're going to be in pretty good shape, because that's a lot of money that's kind of being wasted at the moment, being tied down by a bunch of unimportant troops. Burning Head, for the umpteenth time this battle, this time it will be dodged by the Jade Crossbowmen. Longbow Riders are... they don't want to be fighting Forsaken in melee, not with Blue Horrors firing in to support either. The Chaos Knights are hitting their last legs now, and in fact, are about to be terror routed for the second time, I believe. Qianqi must be eradicated, indeed. That is a very astute observation, my friend. And Zhao Ming is still the major threat he has been since the start of this battle. Blue Horrors are firing in, but he does have innate magic resist, or missile resist rather, and yes, he also has magic resistance. So the fireball being sent his way from the cultist, well, actually it just completely missed, so you don't really need to have great magic resistance if the spells won't even make contact with you, but that's a cultist he wants dead. I want to see how quickly he can get through that barrier shield. Missed the first attack, maybe the second one will be able to bust through. Yeah, one attack and the entire overshield's down, so that's not too bad. Pink Horrors are firing into his flank though, and the Jade Warrior Crossbowmen swarmed by the Forsaken and the Burning Chariot with the Herald atop it. The entire complexion of this battle has been flipped. In positioning and in terms of tactics, Tzeentch has pushed all the way through. There's only a few reinforcements straggling in the rear for Cathay, and in fact, both armies have kind of swapped positions, so Longbow Riders are getting down and dirty. Another Dragon Flame, which has really just tickled the Forsaken and the Tzeentch army in general. One of those Cathayan regiments just shattered. Crossbows are still online. Longbow Riders are doing whatever they can to ensure they continue firing, but Forsaken are hot in their heels and they might not be able to escape. Zhao Ming is starting to drop somewhat low. I think the Herald on his disc still fires while in melee, so he has some decent DPS at close range anyway. And Zhao Ming is feeling it even through his magic and missile resistance. But the Terracotta Sentinel has finally rejoined the important part of the battle. Blue Horrors crumbling out as soon as that Guandao makes contact. And we've got a duel with the Burning Chariot. Herald has lost its overshield, but blending infantry with some cycled charges. Cultist has terrible, horrendous melee stats, but he is a caster. And another Burning Head might mean more Jade Warriors dead. They pretty much dodged out of the way. But even if it hits one model, that's -8 leadership in that regiment, and it might be enough to cause some routing, especially with the Forsaken coming in. And yes, indeed, they broke as soon as they touched each other. That's a full-strength unit of Forsaken with an overshield. Jade Crossbowmen managed to get through much of their Protoss shield, but they're still swarming in the back line. And this is getting really spicy on all sides. Both armies are in tatters, of course. Longbow Riders, Terracotta Sentinel, and Zhao Ming are still alive, so all the important troop choices are still around for Cathay. God, that Dragon's Breath is hilariously bad against Tzeentch. Holy crap. It's so bad. Jade Warrior Crossbowmen with shields, about to get hit by that second tier army ability for Tzeentch, and oh, they're dead. Forsaken are hot in their heels. They are super freaking dead. Now the Herald is starting to drop low, but Tzeentch has a full surround off on them with a nice rear charge from the Forsaken. And Zhao Ming swapping into his human form to drop another Constellation of the Dragon while their overshield is down. And this could devastate them. Just kidding. Just kidding. Oh, man. If it was any other faction, that infantry is just gone. Completely destroyed. They didn't even feel it. Maybe. If this was 500 times gravity, you might have an advantage. But 10, I don't even feel it. 100 points to Gryffindor for anyone who knows that reference. And we got Zhao Ming continuing his Mortal Kombat moves in and amongst the Forsaken, but he's actually in trouble now. Swapping into that Constellation of the Dragon form was not a terrible idea to try to clear out all the infantry quickly, but he is isolated. The Terracotta Sentinel needs to march its way over. Little bit of routing on the Tzeentch side. The balance of power is in favor of Cathay for now. Herald is dropping quite low, but Zhao Ming is on his last legs. Forsaken charging into the Jade Warrior Crossbowman and should be able to finish off that unit for good. And the big question here for the Changer of Ways is, how do you deal with the Terracotta Sentinel? And the reality is, without range troops and without magic missiles, maybe a blue flyer of Tzeentch, I don't think they have the ability to deal with that single entity. They will be able to snipe out Zhao Ming if they continue. You just saw him get another hit there with his ranged attack, but they still have to deal with a few more Longbow Riders. They still have to deal with Zhao Ming when he sauces back into his dragon form, if he has enough time. Remember, it is a 90-second cooldown after you switch. So, once he loses his mobility, he can be killed in melee by even just Forsaken. A full surround off on them would probably do some decent damage to him. Oh, Lord. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're out of control, you disc. The Burning Chariot shows no mercy. But the overshield is essentially useless on the Herald at this point. Probably worth like 80 or 100 extra hit points at best, which will be completely run over by Zhao Ming in dragon form. And even though the Longbow Riders have been routed off, this competition is over. It's just the Cultist and a sliver of HP on the Herald, and the Herald just got Dragon Breath from point blank range. So one attack from the Automaton should be enough to seal his fate. Yeah. Goodbye, Screamers. Goodbye, Herald. Goodbye, Blue Horrors. Crumble City for the Changer of Ways. And the Cultist is now isolated and shall be quickly dispatched. That's sick. Zhao Ming summons entire arsenals of swords and spears to assail his adversaries and then breathes napalm on them from point blank range. That's it. Celestial Loyalists take the battlefield. And that is a win for Cathay over their hated rivals in Qianqi. Interesting game. So, for one, Zhao Ming, his Dragon Breath, and Constellation of the Dragon, we have learned not effective in this scenario. Probably want to be leaning more towards the buff side. I think maybe it's okay to bring Dragon Breath just to get rid of the overshield when a cav charge is about to make contact or something, but you don't want to rely on it. He still did well, 2,000 damage value. His dueling and his ability to dive into the rear and ignore quite a bit of missile fire, useful for sure. Longbow Riders were great, earned 2 chevrons and 2,000 damage value themselves. Terracotta Sentinel was also quite nice, just being that tanky bastion in the center. And then yeah, going wide, a lot of Peasant Horsemen, Jade Lancers, felt like the right call. On the Tzeentch side, the Herald got some good snipes in, but again, I think going for a Tzeentch caster on a disc or a Burning Chariot with the Blue Fire of Tzeentch for a bit of magic missile sniping would have probably helped deal with that Terracotta Sentinel. And then the Chaos Knights were awesome. The Cultists got some good kills on the Peasants with the Burning Chariots, and Forsaken of Tzeentch are just crazy. Their ability to survive big-time spells is insane, and 40% spell resist is definitely really strong. So, GG, well played, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.